world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
You are tuned in to the FowlWeather Podcast, the forecast to your next successful hunt. Coming to you from the home office, Jack's Reef, New York.
Winter Storm Fern bears down on Duck Country, USA, and the FowlWeather Podcast team is here with a special edition weather alert episode to help you hunt through the storm. Will it make ducks migrate farther south or just create a big duck shuffle for the takers? Will the cold break before the end of January, before the end of duck season? Who gets the snow and who gets the ice? Where are the ducks now and where will they be by late January? All today on this midweek storm update. Wow. Well, that forecast changed fast. Just after we did the forecast for Monday earlier this week, the polar vortex took a turn that was not previously in the forecast, and our phones blew up at the FowlWeather Podcast. What do you think about this winter storm? How bad is it going to be? Do you think the ducks will move on this one or just hunker down? We got it all. We got all the questions I think that you could possibly think of. So here we are. We reran the numbers today and through the end of January to help our loyal listeners through the storm. First and foremost, my friends, stay safe. This one's not a joke, and although I think the snowfall totals may be a bit exaggerated for some areas based on looking at several weather models, this is still going to be a significant event. Now, understand that in Jack's Reef Country, this is a weekly occurrence, but I've lived enough places farther south to know that the infrastructure and equipment just is not built to deal with snow and cold very well. But remember how we said that January was going to be warmer than normal? Well, let's not forget that the last few weeks, they were really, really warm, and we will see where January comes in at the end of the month. This is why our forecasts matter, even when conditions may be milder than normal when averaged across a month. It doesn't mean that significant events that make ducks move won't happen. Remember that at the end of season, we also do a recap of our long-term forecasts, and that's going to come out in February. But also remember, for those of you that are prairie snow enthusiasts, to help kickstart water on the breeding grounds, remember we predicted that snowfall wouldn't really kick in until February and March. And so with this Arctic cold, we may be on our way to the start of that event, but it's a little too early to tell yet. Remember that the polar vortex is the spinning cone of cold air that is trapped near the North Pole, but when a polar vortex disruption occurs, it can produce cold events east of the Rockies for a week to 2 weeks. A sudden stratospheric warming, or an SSW, can cause a complete collapse of the polar vortex and result in longer-term cold. Right now, a lot of folks think that instead of an SSW, we are in a rinse, lather, repeat stage with a polar vortex disruption that will then reorganize and hold cold in the Arctic for a couple weeks, only to have another disruption. You know, the other way is we're headed into a full-blown SSW, which could cause a collapse of the polar vortex and maybe even a split in the polar vortex where two centers of cold, one ends up over North America and the other over kind of Russia, Eurasia. And that hasn't played out yet. An SSW and a split of the polar vortex would give us a long and uninterrupted cold event to create a strong frost seal in the prairies, but the back and forth of an organized polar vortex, then disruption, could result in greater snowfall in the prairies as we see our push north and then a polar vortex disruption ram into that warm air and create snow kind of on that South Dakota, North Dakota, U.S.-Canada border. That may also happen into February and March. Again, only time will tell, but the FowlWeather Podcast team will be the first to report on what the Arctic and polar vortex are up to. We all know that feeling. Every waterfowl hunter knows the feeling. You're motionless in the marsh at first light, watching birds work the spread, hoping this season is as good as the last, hoping that the future has birds working the spread for generations to come. At the Theodore Roosevelt Conservation Partnership, the mission is simple: to guarantee all Americans quality places to hunt and fish. For waterfowl hunters, that means safeguarding habitat and migration corridors and creating more places to hunt, so strong fall flights and good hunting opportunities aren't a thing of the past. As the nation's largest coalition of conservation groups, TRCP brings together hunters, anglers, and conservation partners to make sure the future of waterfowl hunting stays strong. Learn more today and join the TRCP by visiting trcp.org. Okay, enough on large-scale factors affecting winter weather. On to the forecast and then what we think ducks are going to do during Winter Storm Fern. We are going to put up some figures on social media showing the weather severity index throughout the year up until this point and the points we are going to hit for the rest of the season. Those values we are going to hit for the rest of the season. The short of it, though, is that we are going to hit the highest values of the season in most mid and southern latitude locales from the Central Flyway across to the Mississippi and into the Atlantic Flyways. The snow and cold comes down through Kansas and into Oklahoma starting Friday night into Saturday morning. But really, the daylight hours of Saturday see a push of the storm deeper into Oklahoma, across Missouri, and into Arkansas as the storm then moves east-northeast. By Sunday morning, a snow line will be set up from Lubbock, Texas, and then at a 45-degree angle in a northeast heading going through about Little Rock, Arkansas, just north of Memphis, Tennessee, and then right at Nashville. Then over to mid-Virginia. The entirety of Maryland and Delaware, the entire Chesapeake Bay region, is going to see significant snowfall with more of that precipitation in the east happening later Sunday into Monday. So this is across the central Mississippi and Atlantic flyways. This is really like a Friday night through Monday morning event. By Monday, most snow will be over with 8 to 10 inches of snow in northern Arkansas and slightly greater amounts farther north and east up towards mid-Indiana, northern Kentucky, and into Ohio. But I really don't think we see more than a foot anywhere other than portions of the east and up into the northeast U.S. as the storm completes its track. Of course, that doesn't matter to folks at these southern latitudes because any amount around 6 to 8 inches is going to cause major travel disruptions anyway. Below that snow line we just described to you, we will probably see worse, which is a ½ inch to an inch of freezing rain. Man, that's the worst stuff. In Jack's Reef nowadays, increasingly we get mixed precipitation in December when previously it would have fallen as snow. And I'll take snow over freezing rain any day. The point? Roads will be treacherous. So if you are hell-bent on hunting in this mess, I'd get to camp ahead of it and make sure you have a good heat source generator and ample food, water, and drink if you get pinned down for, say, 7 days. And it isn't just the precipitation, but the temperatures that are problematic because this isn't going to be a single event that makes ducks move and then you thaw, which has been pretty common the past few years. For example, average daily temperatures from Friday, this coming Friday, the 23rd, until Saturday, the 31st of January, are going to be 27. Average daily temperatures, okay, are going to be 27, 19, 13, 17, 30, 27, 22, 18, and 19 for Memphis, Tennessee. All right, so this is some serious cold too. This is also going to be the case where snow and ice falls and then stays on the roads and boat ramps for a long time because of this cold. That's not what we typically get in the South. We get a little shot of this stuff, and then we get some 40s and 50s, and it melts. But those temperatures, those mean daily temperatures, are well below freezing, so we expect the snow to stay on the ground for about a 7-day period in a lot of places. Most of y'all don't stock up on salt and gravel like we do in the north, so roads are going to be terrible, and I'd even expect a fair amount of highway closures during this event. If you are local and get to a boat ramp or have a camp boat ramp, kitty litter would be a great idea to have along for traction. Anyhow. Okay, but what are ducks going to do in this storm, and when is it going to happen? When are these ducks going to do anything? We're going to put the ducks into 3 categories, and how ducks react depends on species, their individual condition at that time, and where they're currently at as they are subjected to different weather across this weather event. So we put them into 3 different possible categories. 1, the ducks that just hunker down and try to move as little as possible. 2, froze out ducks that move around and head to larger lakes and moving water. And 3, ducks that actually make a southward movement to avoid the long-term cold. How many ducks end up in each of these categories also depends on how long this event continues. The continued cold until the end of January, which is an anomaly in the recent past, suggests that a lot of ducks will eventually be forced into choice 2 and 3 at some point. From my own experience, shallow flooded ag fields and moist soil areas, even if you put on an ice eater, they will be relatively devoid of ducks pretty quickly, and even if you keep water open, you may shoot a few desperate birds. I guess unless you have big water or open rivers nearby, then you may be able to pull more birds, but they're likely to be moving midday than early in the morning. More likely to be moving midday than early in the morning. In weather this cold, it doesn't make sense for a duck to fly around when it's really cold. Rather, they hunker down and tuck their bill to conserve energy because that makes the most sense until the warmest part of the day. So I'd expect a fair amount of midday to afternoon shooting to be available if that's kind of the environment that you end up in and you don't have big water or moving water, or you're not farther south below this really kind of ice up and freeze line. So while some ducks will immediately be forced to move and get shot during the snow and ice, our pick day for the Central Flyway is Monday, next coming Monday, at the Kansas and Oklahoma latitudes. For the Mississippi Flyway, Tuesday is the day for the Arkansas latitude. So these are more of kind of the warm-up days afterwards when ducks do that reshuffle and try to figure their stuff out. Of course, some of these birds are going to move in the snow and ice and get shot, but the likelihood of movement is Monday in the Central Flyway, at the Kansas-Oklahoma latitude, big movements there, and then Tuesday for the Arkansas latitude. In the east, everything south of Virginia really isn't that horrible, and I'd expect ducks to just stick it out more so than the mid-continent where the cold really hits. Chesapeake Bay should get really hot for the rest of the season because of the big open water, as opposed to places like Memphis, Tennessee, where temperatures will cause significant icing and reduce opportunities for many hunters and ducks to use shallow wetlands. When we get over to North Carolina, kind of south of that Chesapeake Bay region, the North Carolina latitude, there will be minimal icing, or it will just be short-lived, and daily high temperatures will be in the above freezing range every day other than like one day. So there's some icing there, but it's going to thaw right back out. So hunt the thaw if you get ice in the Atlantic Flyway. Duck movement is going to be more so in the categories of 1 and 2. 1, hunker down, and 2, move around locally in that duck shuffle in the Atlantic Flyway, and don't really expect any really new significant movement south between now and the end of the season in the east. The Atlantic Ocean just moderates the storm along the coast, and there's going to be a lot of local movement. Birds are going to be able to move to big water. There's going to be birds that are going to be shot, and there's going to be opportunities to get after ducks, but it's not really much of a southern movement. Now, we will get grief over this because some people just won't be in places where they can kill ducks, and our social media is going to blow up. But ducks will be moving and moving south on this too. Very southern locales in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama should pick up birds that select door number 3. That I'm going to make one last, this door number 3 is I'm going to make one last migratory move for the season. I'm going to make one last migratory move for the season door number 3. I wouldn't expect these to be mallards to a great degree, but certainly some gadwall, shoveler, widgeon, and teal are going to make a southern movement to get away from this cold. If you live in western Arkansas, eastern Oklahoma, or eastern Texas along river systems, you should expect a bump of mallards on Monday morning. This also applies to most areas in northeast Louisiana, but less so than areas just north of you that I just listed. Okay. We never covered the Pacific Flyway, and that is because this is an east of the Rockies event. There's no new update. Our WSI indicates that mallards are still at peak abundance in Washington State. We don't need to say any more. Sorry, folks. Maybe next year over in the West. Mostly, be safe, my friends. Some of you will have ducks that you didn't have before. Some of you will lose ducks and not have a place to hunt. Some of you will pick around the edges at ducks that have no other choice other than to die over an ice eater. But for sure, it's going to be an event that you will remember. But mostly be safe. No duck is worth your life. Myself, having spent 2 winters on Lake Ontario collecting ducks for research on days with temperatures as low as -40, and by the way, mathematically, Fahrenheit and Celsius meet at -40. It's all just cold at that point. From someone that lived in a survival suit for 2 winters on the North Shore of Lake Ontario shooting 750 ducks for research, I know how bad it can get and that you need to use your head. Live to see another duck season. No duck is worth your life. Personally, I'm going to hole up on Saturday where we are here in Jack's Reef Country, pet the old yellow labs, probably read a good book, stoke the fire, and dream of next season. And speaking of dreaming of next season, that was a catch. So, go Bills. Thanks for listening, and as always, may your skies be filled and shoot straight, my friends.